Here's one fact for every episode of Friendship is Magic. The Cutie Mark Crusaders are shown together in this episode despite not meeting until 11 episodes later. One of the characters introduced in this episode, Stephen Magnet, would not be named in the show until season 5. The original version of this episode was only 11 minutes long, but had to be elongated when Hasbro decided FIM would have 22-minute episodes. Apple bucking was originally going to be called apple bumping and be performed with a headbutt instead of kicks. In this episode, Spike hums the MLP theme song when in the town hall. Trixie was originally planned to be a stallion. Razor is the first dragon shown in the series other than Spike. The title of Twilight Sparkle's Slumber Parties 101 book is similar to the name of the book, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, but Were Afraid to Ask. Kind of a bizarre reference. Applejack's nickname in this episode, Apple Teeny, is pronounced the same as the alcoholic drink Apple Teeny, paralleling how Applejack is the name of an alcoholic drink. Show creator Lauren Faust wrote this script as a parallel to the Tribbles from Star Trek, whereas writer M.A. Larson believed the episode was a parallel to the Gremlins. The titular song Winter Wrap-Up was posted to YouTube a month before the episode aired. On Canadian TV airings, Silver Spoon calling the CMCs losers was muted out due to being insensitive. This episode's title is a play on the phrase fair weather friends, which refers to friendships that only last when it's convenient. This episode was originally titled Dress for Failure, but changed to have a less negative connotation. This episode was developed from the phenomenon of rheumatism, I really hope I pronounced that right, which is a way of predicting the weather. Rarity's plotline in this episode seems to be based on the Greek mythology story of Icarus, who flies too close to the sun that it melts his wings. This episode's title is a play on Stairmaster, which is an American fitness machine company. The CMC's costumes were designed off of 80s fashion, while their song was written by Ingram as a quote, cheesy 80s tune with 3 out-of-tune soloists. The iTunes release of this episode had many errors, as it was an unfinished version not meant to air. The rightmost photo in this shot is a slightly modified version of Faust's original concept art for Posey, who became Fluttershy. This episode's title is a play on the idiom over a barrel, meaning a helpless situation where no one has control over it. The name Philomena was reused in Generation 5 as Princess Pip's full name. Before this episode premiered, fans could go to the Hub's website to vote on how they thought Rainbow Dash earned her cutie mark, though this had no impact on the final episode. This episode's working title was Who Goes There, but changed during production, who spelt like the owl noise. Pinky's imaginary friend Rocky, the pile of rocks, speaks with a Brooklyn accent as a reference to the Rocky film series. This episode references several fairy tales, such as Cinderella and Snow White. This episode was written before Season 1 even premiered, but was always intended to air in Season 2. The award ceremony at the end was meant to be a shot-for-shot recreation of a scene in Star Wars Episode 4, but parts were cut to shorten the episode. There was a minifigure toy created of the Smarty Pants doll. Applejack's costume is based on the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. This episode's working title was Sissy Fit, but changed during production. In this episode, Applejack asks Zecora if she has a zebra sense, referring to Spider-Man's spider sense. Hasbro had already paired Rainbow Dash with a tortoise for a toy, which is what led to this episode's premise. This episode's title is a play on the term ne'er-do-well, meaning someone who does no good. Series composer Daniel Ingram had asked his Facebook page to name the song for this episode. The episode had the working titles Giving Dangerously and Attack of the 50-Foot Dragon, but was eventually changed to the final version. This episode was initially displayed as the 13th episode in the season on iTunes, but was later fixed. This episode claims Granny Smith helped found Ponyville, contradicting the previous season's statement that Ponyville had been around for hundreds of years. Pinky's instructions for using the crib reference a line from The Simpsons episode, The Last Temptation of Homer. This episode was pulled from air after a controversy surrounding the character Derpy. Reruns contain an adjusted scene to make her less offensive. This episode is actually banned from airing on TV in the UK, Ireland, and Italy due to the alcoholic implications of cider in those countries. Ahuizotl is based on the Ahuizotl, a creature from Aztec mythology. The plot of this episode seems to be based on the Arthurian legend Tristan and Isolde. The felt cutouts seen in this episode were made by director Jason Thiessen's wife, and that scene was animated in his own basement. Lyra and Bonbon are actually shown together in this episode on purpose by a layout artist to be an Easter egg towards the fans. The equations Twilight writes on the board reference a real physics equation called a Lorentz transformation. Faust has stated that the dragons in this episode have a negative attitude to the ponies to reference society's attitude against girls' toys like My Little Pony. Twilight's line, "Do I look like I speak squirrel?" is an allusion to Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls, who does speak squirrel and actually has the same voice actress. The line XOXO Gabby Gums is a reference to the phrase XOXO Gossip Girl from the titular book and TV series. One of the books in Twilight's bag is actually the history book from the beginning of the first episode. Neat touch. Advertisements for this episode were based on the British royal wedding of 2011. Part of Chrysalis's choreography in This Day aria was a reference to Poor Unfortunate Souls from The Little Mermaid. Shining armor greeting the main six in a snowy tundra parallels when Han Solo searches for Luke Skywalker on the ice planet of Hoth during Star Wars Episode 5. Sombra's defeat actually marks the last time Cadance defeats a villain in the show, all the way back in Season 3. One of Pinky's clones makes a face that references her Generation 3 model. This episode's title is a reference to the phrase "one bad apple spoils the bunch." This episode marks the first time the word alicorn was used in the show. Prior to this, alicorns were only referenced to as princesses or unicorns. This episode's title is a play on the title of the 1993 film Sleepless in Seattle. Many of the scenes in this episode are references to the movie Top Gun. This is actually the final episode where a friendship lesson is reported to Princess Celestia. Spike defeating the Timberwolves mirrors the biblical tale of David and Goliath. The antagonist is defeated with a single rock, while the protagonist is much smaller than the enemy. This episode was originally going to be titled Fluttershy's Home for Reformed Draconici, which alludes to the title of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, a show which Faust and many other writers had worked on previously. This episode has the first mention of the Equestria Games, though it would take another season to fully explore this event. This episode marks the first time both Shining Armor and Princess Cadance are shown in the same episode, but never seen together. This episode was originally planned to be the final episode of the series. This episode marks the first time Twilight is named in an episode title. Flashbacks in this episode use Luna's current appearance, instead of her older look from Season 1, which would have made more sense in the timeline. This episode was leaked a few days prior to its intended release by extracting code from the Hub's website. AK Yearling's name is revealed in this episode and contains quite a few puns and references. A yearling is a horse between 1 and 2 years old. Yearling Books is an American book printing company. And finally, the name sounds similar to American author J.K. Rowling. This episode is actually the first time that Sweetie Belle's voice actress, Claire Corlett, sings. In previous episodes, her singing voice was done by Michelle Kreber, Applebloom's VA. Spike quotes, "Once again, the day is saved," which alludes to the narrator in the Powerpuff Girls. Writer Megan McCarthy tweeted before this episode aired that, quote, "It's just like the musical Cats, but with, bats. And ponies, but mostly bats." This episode is the first time Main Haddon is shown that's not part of a flashback. There's a Blink and You Miss It Slenderman reference in the background of this episode. Mid-2010s was a wild time. Rainbow Falls and Tradia were originally going to be one episode, titled What Ponies Want. This episode marks the first appearance of Flash Sentry in the main series. This episode marks Maud Pie's first appearance in the show, being added into Pinky's childhood photo. Maud actually did not appear in the Cutie Mark Chronicles. Writer McCarthy has tweeted this episode, quote, "might feature her favorite Rarity performance ever." The second appearance of Flutterguy comes with 2 new voice actors, Alvin Sanders for the speaking voice, and Marcus Mosley for the singing voice. In this episode, Sweetie Belle says, quote, "We made a huge mistake," which is an allusion to a catchphrase in the sitcom Arrested Development. Seabreeze's voice actor, Brian Drummond, has stated that, quote, "Some fun lines were scripted that we used as a good base for mostly a bunch of silly ad-libbing," being in reference to the Breezy's lines. Applejack is the only member of the main 6 to appear in this episode. This episode is the first time that the Pies rock farm is visited that's not part of a flashback. This is the first episode to feature Sweetie Belle's name in the title. This episode title is based on the phrase leap of faith, meaning to come to a conclusion without any evidence. This episode is the first time Tara Strong is credited as voicing a character other than Twilight. She gets the coveted role of Pegasus 1. The character selling Discord lamps in this episode, Stellar Eclipse, was featured in the show as a Make-A-Wish patient's OC. This episode marks the first time that Rarity's father is seen without wearing a hat, so this is actually the first time we know he's a unicorn. Spike's voice actress, Kathy Westlock, completely ad-libbed the Cloudsdale anthem. Tyrek and Scorpion are based on characters from Generation 1 with the same names. In the G1 TV pilot, Rescue at Midnight Castle, Scorpion betrays Tyrek, possibly inspiring the plot of this episode. This is the first time a season finale does not end in Canterlot. Wow, we're like halfway through and you're still watching. Here's a fun fact about this channel. Almost none of my viewers are actually subscribed. You should change that. Please, this video took a lot of time to make. Alright, Season 5 time. Songwriter Ingram has revealed in a tweet that the song In Our Town was specifically inspired by World War II propaganda music. Shattering the Cutie Mark wall references the 1984 Apple advertisement for the Macintosh home computer, which in turn was a reference to George Orwell's book 1984. This is the first episode where the Golden Oak Library is actually referred to by its name, having had many different names in merchandise before this episode. This is the first episode title to use an ampersand instead of the word and, with the only other being Season 6's episode Dungeons and Discords. Despite being over 5 seasons into the show, this is the first episode to feature a Rainbow Dash solo song. This episode title is a play on the Fox reality show America's Most Wanted. The Smooze is based on a Generation villain with the same name, the second since Lord Tyrek. Seeing as this is the 99th episode of the show, this makes Friendship is Magic the longest running animated series produced by Hasbro, surpassing the Transformers, which ended at 98 episodes. This episode marks the first speaking role of Octavia, and the second speaking appearances for many other background ponies. The only member of the main 6 to appear in this episode is Twilight Sparkle. This episode had quite a different plot originally, being intended to be titled Sugar Free Pie, being about Pinkie quitting her sugar addiction. The plot was scrapped and changed due to a lot of negative connotations about addiction in the episode. In this episode, Twilight mentions studying using the Hey Cart method. This alludes to the real-world philosopher Descartes. Big Mac's dream transformation into an alicorn references transformation sequences from the 1992 anime Sailor Moon, including similar background music. The character Sassy Saddles was named by writer Amy Keating Rogers' daughter. This is the first episode to take place in Canterlot where Twilight Sparkle does not appear. This episode was originally intended to take place in Philadelphia, but since it was changed to Manhattan, that former city was never shown in the series. Orchard Blossom's manner of speaking is based on Scarlett O'Hara from the Margaret Mitchell novel Gone with the Wind. This episode aired on the 5th anniversary of Friendship is Magic, possibly resolving the prominent subplot of the CMCs to honor that. This episode actually is the first time Mayor Mare is referred to by name. Excluding flashbacks, this episode contains the first appearance of the Pie family, excluding Pinkie and Maud. The title of this episode references a Season 1 Fluttershy episode being Stairmaster. Starlight Glimmer can be seen hidden in the background, spying on the main 6. She actually does this in one other Season 5 episode, see if you can spot it, tell me in the comments. Peter Kelemis, voice actor of Big Daddy McColt, was nominated for a 2016 UBCP award for Best Voice. I was writing this script while hanging out with one of my friends, and she forced me to include this fact because she thought Big Daddy McColt sounded funny, and honestly, it kinda does. This episode mentions the pony concert Pony Palooza, referencing the chapter book My Little Pony, Pinkie Pie, and the Rockin' Pony Palooza Party, which in turn is a portmanteau of Pony and the real world concert Lollapalooza. Spike says, quote, "That was better than the last number of times," to Twilight, referencing the same line he says in Rainbow Rocks. This episode is the first time that Discord, Tyrek, Flim, and Flam appear with no speaking lines. Crystalling seems to be a pun off of christening, a similar Christian ritual in the real world. This is the first episode where Twilight Sparkle's parents, Twilight Velvet and Nightlight, actually speak. The skating rink in Manhattan is based after the rink in Rockefeller Plaza. This is the first episode to not feature a single main character. In this episode, Ember refers to Equestria as Ponyland, which is actually the location of the pony's homeland in Generation 1. Despite making it all the way to Season 6, this is actually the first episode title to start with the letter N. When imitating Fluttershy, Dash suggests using the nickname Care Mare, possibly a reference to the Care Bears, another popular toy brand. This episode contains the first solo songs from Applejack and Luna, but is it technically them if they're playing other characters? This episode's reporter, Buried Lead, seems to be based on the character J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man. Also, Buried Lead is a hilarious name. This is the first episode of the show to include Applejack's full name in the title. This is the first episode to name Fluttershy's bird as Constance. It's Gonna Work, the song for this episode, was recorded on traditional instruments such as I'm not even gonna try pronouncing these, just read the tweet on the screen. Quibblepants is voiced by celebrity guest Patton Oswalt, and Quibble's line about disliking books outside of the original Daring Do trilogy is a reference to Oswalt's own opinions about the Star Wars franchise. The song from this episode, Derby Racers, is reused instrumentally in the Season 8 episode Yakety Sax. The title of this episode is an allusion to the 2002 film 28 Days Later. This episode contains Spike's first solo song, if you don't count the Cloudsail anthem from Season 4. This is also the first solo song from a male character, though his voice actress is female. The symbol on the Squizzard's amulet is the... Does this symbol have a name? It's the S thing you drew on your desk in elementary school, you know the one. This is the first episode Snail's Toxin without Snips appearing. This episode was actually aired in both Poland and Italy before America. This is the first appearance of Flim and Flam that doesn't revolve around a conflict with the Apple family. Also, this is the first Flim and Flam focused episode where they don't sing. After living there for the whole season, this is the first appearance of Starlight's bedroom in Twilight's castle. The plot of this episode references the 1950 Japanese film Rashomon, where a murder is described in contradictory ways by different witnesses. This episode marks the first time Big Mac is called by his full name, Big Macintosh, since Season 2. This episode's title is a reference to the 1986 film Top Gun. Come to think of it, a lot of Wonderbolts episodes have Top Gun references. Try to count them all and tell me in the comments. Including the following part of this episode, this is the first season finale to not include any songs. The scene where multiple changelings claim to be the real Fluttershy is an allusion to the I'm Spartacus scene from the 1960 film Spartacus. This is the only Season 7 episode where Rarity doesn't have any lines of dialogue. This is the only episode 2 of a season to not be part of a 2-part opener. This episode has a small reference to Generation 1 villain Grogar, who would go on to appear later in the series. After being in the show for a few seasons, this episode is the first time Starlight appears in an episode that Twilight does not appear in. According to writer Jillian M. Barrow, Lola the Sloth is named after the real-life Lola from Wildlife Learning Center. This episode's title is a play on the common expression forever young, which is frequently used in television, music, and tons of other aspects of pop culture. This episode's title is a portmanteau of the phrase parental guidance and the word glide, cause, you know, Pegasus. While wearing their disguises, the CMCs pose in a way similar to Charlie's Angels. This episode contains the first time Photo Finish's eyes are seen. This episode was originally going to have Twilight called by the map, but was changed during development to Starlight. In this episode, Prince Rutherford says, "Pink pony better check self before wreck self," being a reference to the Ice Cube song Check Yourself. When one of Discord's duplicates swings a baseball bat, the Charge fanfare commonly played at sporting events is played in the background. This is the top-rated episode from the series on IMDb, with a 9.5 out of 10. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 if I could. Writer M.A. Larson revealed at a convention that he wasn't too thrilled with how this episode turned out, despite being the one to have written it. This episode marks the first time a character that's not a pony is called by the cutie map, with a symbol of Spike's head taking the place of a cutie mark. Early in development, this episode was titled Train Tales, where the storytelling would have happened on a long train ride instead of a camping trip. In this episode, Trixie suggests using the good pony bad pony routine on Pharynx, referencing the good cop bad cop tactic used in interrogations. Somnambula shares her name with a G1 villain who was a human witch. The Vanity Mare magazine is an allusion to the real-life fashion magazine Vanity Fair. In this episode, Fluttershy states that ancient equestrian healers would wear bird masks to prevent them from getting sick themselves. This is a reference to the real-life plague doctor masks from the bubonic plague. The title of this episode is a play on the sitcom Parks and Recreation, which was actually previously going to be referenced in the working title of the Season 6 episode The Saddle Row Review. It was originally going to be called Saddle Row and Rec, but was changed. Twilight references a location called Pony Island, being a reference to Coney Island, an area of Brooklyn best known for its amusement parks. It's a pretty good Taylor Swift song too. This episode, as well as the following 3 episodes, were leaked online before their intended releases. This episode marks the first appearance of Maud Pie without Pinky being in the episode. The area Ponehenge is a spoof on Stonehenge, a historical stone monument in England. By showing the Sirens' defeat of Star Swirl, this episode actually contradicts the comic's storyline about their first defeat being shown in Fiendship is Magic issue 3. This is the first episode to chronologically take place after the 2017 movie. Man, I hated that movie, go check out my video crapping on it. According to the songwriter Nicole Dubik, this episode's song, Friendship Always Wins, was vaguely inspired by a song from the 2003 mockumentary A Mighty Wind. I never watched that movie, so if you have, tell me in the comments what song it's being inspired by. This episode's title is a reference to the Neil Simon play, The Odd Couple. This episode marks the first time Maud has a speaking role for 2 episodes in a row. One of the characters introduced in this episode, Jackpot, is implied by director Jim Miller on Twitter to actually be Trixie's father, though Jackpot's not necessarily aware he has a child. This episode is the first time that Sequestria is called by its name. Director Jim Miller stated on Twitter that the original version of this script had Celestia stating she first raised the sun 1,000 years ago, but was changed to 1,111 years ago. I imagine this was changed to keep the timeline in check. Sire's Hollow is based on Stars Hollow from the Gilmore Girls. This is the worst rated episode on IMDb, with a 4.4 out of 10. As opposed to the first Hearts and Hooves episode, this episode was not released around Valentine's Day. Spike's VA had teased on Twitter the possibility of Spike getting wings before this episode aired. One of Rarity's lines in this episode, Repeaty Bell, was ad-libbed by Tabitha St. Germain when recording. This is the first appearance of an antagonist in the series where the main characters never become aware of the antagonist being there. According to writer Nicole Dubik, this episode was originally based on Pride and Prejudice, but got changed around during production. The title and concept of this episode is a reference to the film The Breakfast Club. The abbreviation for Friendship University is FU. Given this episode poking fun at some of the predatory nations of colleges, I really hope that was intentional. Rarity comments that her boots were not made for trotting, possibly a reference to the Nancy Sinatra song, These Boots Were Made for Walking. This episode contains the first time that Fluttershy snores. Oh my god, I am running out of good facts this far into the video. Starlight's lyric, for 9 at least, references the show nearing its final season. According to supervising director Jim Miller on Twitter, there were a lot of technical challenges in this episode. I didn't see a tweet of him elaborating on them, so give me your best guess in the comments. This is the only episode to focus on one of the pillars of Equestria after their return to the show, which is a shame. These are good characters, they should have been explored more. This episode was directly inspired by the Star Wars Clone Wars episode, The Gathering. This is the last episode to make use of the cutie map. Sludge shares his name with a G1 character, with writer Dubik having stated on Twitter that Sludge had many names before they finally found one that they were allowed to use. This episode has the first time a supporting character became an antagonist. This episode marks the first time a two-parter has had 2 different writers writing each episode. This episode has a few references to DC Comics, with Grogar's lair resembling the Hall of Doom and Sombra's line Kneel Before Sombra referencing General Zod's lines from the DC Comics. Rarity's line, Show Me the Muddy, was an ad-lib from Tabitha St. Germain. She has so many good ad-libs, she's one of my favorite voice actors in this show. This episode has the first song to solely feature the Young Six. This episode has Shining Armor's final speaking appearance in the show. That feels kinda wrong being so early in the final season. This is actually the first season 9 episode to not mention King Sombra, as he was mentioned in episodes 3 and 4. Clear Sky and Windsprint are voiced by Patton Oswalt's real-life wife and daughter respectively. This is the first time that Spike dresses up as a dragon outside of a Nightmare Night episode. This is the first time Lord Tyrek and Cozy Glow sing. Honestly, their song goes really hard, and it's the second singing appearance for Chrysalis, having had This Day Aria back in season 2. 9 seasons in, this episode is the first time we see a dragon egg other than Spike's. Jim Miller tweeted that this episode was almost called It's the Great Seedling Applejack, as a reference to the Peanuts special, It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. This is the last episode in the series to feature neither the main 6 or the Cutie Mark Crusaders, including only side characters. Scootaloo's aunts were first mentioned in the 2017 chapter book, My Little Pony, Ponyville Mysteries, Riddle of the Rusty Horseshoe, becoming canon in this episode. The stage musicals seen during Celestia and Luna's song is a reference to the musical Wicked. Since being green is normal in Equestria, I have to wonder what this version of the show's plot is about. The security ponies say the line, No pony ever comes out and no pony ever goes in, referencing a line from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The title is a reference to 2468, a common chant used in cheerleading. I know that fact is really obvious, but this episode just kinda sucks, so I just want to move past it. This is the first episode to include Sunburst without the presence of Starlight. Shining Armor's security measures from Sparkle 7 are actually relevant in this episode. This is the last episode of the show to only feature one member of the main 6. This episode's title is a spoof on the expression drag and drop, used with computers. 9 seasons in, this is the first episode to feature Big Mac without the appearance of either of his sisters. Caballeron's disguise in Elias, Groom QQ Martingale, is a reference to the author, George R.R. Martin. Jim Miller had stated before that the writers had wanted to age up the CMCs since season 6, but this finally ended up being when they had a chance to write that episode. In the background of this episode, Lyra and Bon Bon get engaged. This is a great season for LGBT rep. This is the first and only two-parter to not take place in either the first 2 or last 2 episodes of a season. Twilight says, "The same thing we do every time, Pinky, try to save the world." Possibly a reference to the line, "The same thing we do every night, Pinky, try to take over the world," from every episode of Pinky and the Brain. This episode contains the first and only time Sunset Shimmer is seen in the main series. Oh my god, that was a lot of episodes. I've been recording for 45 minutes straight. I need to take a nap. Like, subscribe. Thanks for watching Glimmer Times. Okay, good night.